is it? You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You've got an issue now involving the timing of her not playing versus the selling of tickets because they're struggling to sell tickets. Almost 3,300 fans said, nah, we're not showing up. Actually, let me rephrase. 3,300 tickets didn't get sold. A whole lot more fans than that just didn't bother to show. So they paid for a ticket. And
the Indiana Fever picked up a win against the Portland Fire. Without Caitlin Clark in the lineup, but the post-game reaction from both the coaching staff and the broader fan base told a more complicated story than the final score suggested. Stephanie White's locker room address after the game was notably upbeat. She highlighted the team's 75% assist rate, 21 assists on 28 made field goals, strong free throw shooting at 25 of 29, and 20 points generated off turnovers. Her tone throughout was enthusiastic, and when a reporter directed a question toward her that had nothing to do with Clark, her relief was visible. The response from fans watching that footage was immediate and largely negative.
And said, nah, we're not consuming this crap in person. We're not coming down there. My video last night, people had come in out of state. One lady came in from Montana. This is why you're getting cremated. We've got Stephanie White from last night's game, locker room, celebrating. She's so happy when Caitlin Clark's not playing. It's unbelievable. And I've got a video of her.
The criticism centered on the optics of a head coach appearing more at ease and more celebratory in the absence of her most important player than when that player is on the court. The win itself came against an expansion roster of Portland's 12 players. The majority would likely not be in the league at all without the recent franchise expansion. Framing that result as evidence of team depth or organizational growth drew pushback from analysts and fans alike, who pointed out that the Fever had been swept 3-0 by the Golden State Valkyries the prior season, a team widely considered a legitimate contender. On the question of whether the league would take action regarding the injury report timeline, White expressed confidence that no fine was coming.
And I've got a video of her getting a question that is not related to Caitlin Clark and her being giddy over it. This is not the coach you're looking for. Please move along. And how about this? How about the Department of Justice? Are they going to get involved? Because, betting. Betting. We pulled her at the last minute after people's been wagering on this.
An ESPN national reporter suggested otherwise, noting that given Clark did not practice the day before and showed no public indication of an ailment until 100 minutes before tip-off, the situation was likely to draw league scrutiny. On game day for back-to-backs. The notification in this case came in well after those windows.
At the last minute, after people's been wagering on this game based on the injury report you put out. You didn't have her doubtful, probable, day-to-day, none of that. Alexa Philippou this morning gets us started. Given White said Clark did not practice yesterday and there was no indication Clark was dealing with an ailment until she was ruled out 100 minutes before tip.
The financial angle of that delay continued to generate discussion. Fans and commentators raised the point that sports betting markets had been operating all day based on an injury report that did not reflect Clark's actual availability. This is a preview. Others noted that withholding the announcement until close to game time maximized the window during which fans might purchase walk-up tickets under the assumption she was playing. Whether either of those concerns prompts any formal review from the league or outside bodies remains unclear. Sports journalist Christine Brennan, who has covered Clark extensively, addressed the broader attendance picture directly, noting that Clark occupies a role closer to that of a headline performer than a conventional athlete.
With an ailment until she was ruled out 100 minutes before tip, would imagine this is something the league may take a look at. That is an ESPN national insider saying, yeah, the W's going to, and we'll hear from Stephanie White, because she arrogantly believes this is nothing the league's going to look at. And knowing how the agenda works in this league, they probably won't. The players got their CBA.
Fans come specifically to see her, the way audiences attend a concert or a Broadway production. The draw is personal and specific. That framing, Brennan argued, makes honesty about her availability not just a courtesy, but a commercial and ethical obligation, particularly as attendance numbers continue to slide. The fourth consecutive Indiana Fever home game had seen attendance trend downward. The unsold seat total for this game came in just under 3,300, and that figure does not account for fans who had already purchased tickets and simply chose not to attend. People who had traveled from other states, including at least one who flew in from Montana, were among those in the building for a game that did not feature the player they had come to see.
They probably won't. The players got their CBA, the league got their media rights deal. Now, what I don't buy into is the idea that the networks are good with Caitlin not playing. I don't believe that. They want Caitlin playing in these games. Because at the end of the day, they've got to answer to advertisers. If they don't deliver, they have to start providing free advertisements. That's what happens. The NFL's had to do it. Over down.
Fan commentary that circulated after the game was pointed. The repeated themes were a lack of trust in the front office, frustration with what many described as a coaching environment that appeared indifferent toward Clark, and concern that the connections running through the organization's leadership had created a structure with no meaningful internal accountability. Whether those frustrations translate into sustained pressure on the front office will likely depend on how the team handles the next stretch of games and whether communication around Clark's health and availability improves. The narrative that Caitlin Clark was suspended by the Indiana Fever following her sideline disagreement with assistant coach Brianna January does not hold up under scrutiny, and several details from the day of the game contradict it directly. The most straightforward piece of evidence against the suspension theory is Clark's own behavior at the arena.
The NFL's had to do it. Over down ratings. That is what happens. You sell a certain amount of views, and when you don't deliver, you got to make it up. My boy Ben Daniel, go subscribe. For the fourth straight Indiana Fever home game, attendance continues to trend downward. Guys, we're down over 3,000. This is just the unsold tickets. By the way, being on a Wednesday has nothing to do with this. Caitlin Clark was selling games out.
Rather than being absent or distancing herself from the team, she was present courtside, visibly supportive of her teammates, and was seen greeting players on the opposing squad, including Aja Wilson, in a warm and relaxed manner. A player serving a suspension does not typically behave that way in a public setting, and the optics of the evening were not consistent with someone being disciplined by the organization. Clark's presence at the game, having attended expecting to watch her play. Trainer Rob Dozier approached Clark's mother approximately 5 minutes before the absence was publicly announced and informed her that Clark's back was not feeling right and that she would not be suiting up.
Being on a Wednesday has nothing to do with this. Caitlin Clark was selling games out on any day ending in a Y. Any day ending in a Y. That's not an excuse. Slurp FC. Save it. Nobody wants to hear it. Christine Brennan. Of course, she wrote a book about Caitlin. She's one of the very few actual media members that will keep it real when it comes to Caitlin Clark.
The fact that her parents had no advance knowledge of her sitting out, and that the trainer was only delivering the news moments before the official disclosure, strongly suggests the decision was made late and was genuinely health-related rather than the result of a planned disciplinary action. The argument Clark had with Brianna January was also, by most accounts, a routine sideline dispute between a player and a coach, not an escalating confrontation that would warrant formal punishment. The exchange stemmed from Clark being called out over a defensive breakdown that was more accurately attributable to a mistake by a different player. Frustration in that context is not uncommon, and the reaction from others on the bench, who largely continued focusing on the game rather than intervening, indicated the situation was not being treated as a serious incident in real time.
Because you're amazing, and they weren't going to go and, like, she wasn't basically going to go out of her way to, like, be as positive as she was and joking about, and her parents wouldn't have been at the game. Like, there are people that have been at the game. There have literally been people, there were people at the game that sat beside Caitlin Clark's parents that said that, like,
no physical contact occurred. No one was in anyone's face in a threatening way, and the rest of the coaching staff did not move to de-escalate because there was no genuine escalation taking place. The coaching dynamic between Clark and the Fever staff is, by all indications, a genuinely complex one, not because of any single incident, but because of the inherent tension that exists when a high-skill, instinct-driven player operates within a system built around structure and coaching authority. Clark plays with considerable emotional intensity and has, at times, pushed against the boundaries of what the system asks of her. Coaches in that position face a difficult balancing act, accepting that a player of her caliber will sometimes operate outside the prescribed framework, while still trying to maintain the integrity of the system for everyone else.
The trainer, Rob Dozier, went over to Caitlin's mom. This is like 5 minutes before it became public. Went over to Caitlin's parents and saying, yeah, she's not feeling great. Her back's not feeling great. She's not playing today. Her parents showed up to that game expecting her to play. Like, her parents expected her to play. I don't think the Fever, not that the Fever didn't expect her to play. I think the Fever absolutely expected her to play, by the way. I think the Fever expected Caitlin Clark to play. The problem...
That tension does not disappear. But it is also not the same thing as a disciplinary crisis. If a suspension had actually been issued, it would have become public. Suspensions in professional sports, particularly those involving the league's most prominent player, do not stay contained. Someone within or adjacent to the organization would have disclosed it, whether through official channels or otherwise.
I think the Fever expected Caitlin Clark to play. The problem with it is that they didn't put her as questionable. If the Fever, knowing that Caitlin Clark missed practice, put her on the injury report to probable or questionable. Like, we've seen it plenty of times where players play if they're questionable. it means the fans know at least Caitlin Clark might not play. It's not a situation where 14,000 fans buy tickets and 8,000 show up. 8,000 show up. But yeah, look, it is.
Clark appeared on a podcast with teammate Aaliyah Boston around the same period in a relaxed and candid setting that would have been a strange context for a player navigating a tournament, none of the surrounding circumstances. Her demeanor, her family's presence, the trainer's quiet conversation with her mother, the absence of any corroborating leak, supports the suspension narrative.
It is what it is, but why is the narrative she's being suspended? Like, the narrative is that Caitlin Clark got suspended for giving out the coaches. I'm sorry, if Caitlin Clark was suspended for arguing with coaches by the Fever, we would know. We would know. I think everybody knows. Everybody would know if she was being suspended.
That disclosure did not happen. The resulting combination of a clean injury report, followed by a last-minute absence, created an information vacuum that speculation rushed to fill. The suspension theory gained traction, not because the evidence supported it, but because fans and observers had already lost confidence in the organization's communications and were willing to consider almost any explanation over the official one. That erosion of credibility is the actual problem the Fever need to reckon with, not a suspension that, by every available indicator, never happened.
Because teams make it a big deal, especially when you are a team who, let's be completely real, you have and I don't mean this in a bad way, because there's a lot of unbelievable coaches that are control freaks, where you have a control freak coach that doesn't want you to leave her system in any way. Like, and again, I don't mean that in a bad way. There's plenty of great coaches that are control freaks, but never great coaches for flair players. But at the same time, like it would be out. It would be out. If it turns out that Caitlin Clark was suspended, we would know. Someone would have leaked it. Caitlin Clark wouldn't have been laughing on Aaliyah Boston's podcast. Maybe she got suspended for saying, I'm only under contract till next year, as a joke for Aaliyah. If she was suspended, what is even the point of even contemplating what could have suspended her? If Caitlin Clark's going to play, what could have suspended her? If Caitlin Clark's going to get suspended for arguing with a coach, this is not the first or the last time she's going to do it. I'm going to be real here. I don't think Caitlin Clark's easy to coach. No player is. No, there's no coach in the world that loves coaching a player who will literally do the opposite of what you want them to do, but are still spectacular. Like, it is really, really hard to take, like, as a coach, to basically just say, this player is so good that they're doing the opposite of what we wanted them to do. But they are still we have to let them. It's really hard to do as a coach. Very few coaches want to do it, and very few coaches are able to do it. I cannot stress it enough. Very, very few coaches are able to completely take off the reins and say,